Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for this Wednesday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy. Up first, hazardous weather graphic. We've got winter weather advisory for the eastern North Slope area. Let's see, for tonight into tomorrow morning for snow and blowing snow, winds gusting 50 miles an hour. Otherwise, we've got winter storm warning out for St. Lawrence Island and the Bering Strait coast through Thursday morning for 48 inches of snow, winds gusting to 50 miles an hour, along with areas of freezing rain. And the south coast of the Seward Peninsula there, Nome, Golovin, and White Mountain, that's for tonight for snow mixed with freezing rain. Also snow mixed with freezing rain, resulting in a winter weather advisory for Kotzebue Sound area. And same thing again for the Yukon Delta and Lower Yukon Valley, looking for snow mixed with freezing rain at times through tonight into tomorrow. And then the wind advisory out for the Eastern Alaska Range that's out for tonight, ends 6 a.m. tomorrow morning, for winds gusting to 55 miles per hour from the south-southeast. And from there, taking a look at satellite imagery, you can see low pressure traveling northwestward along the southwest coast, now south-southwest of St. Lawrence Island. Another system pulling northwestward there, approaching the Alaska Peninsula there. And the frontal boundary in between the two brings a significant amount of rain, Kodiak Island, and lighter amounts in across Bristol Bay in the southwest interior, up towards St. Lawrence Island and the Seward Peninsula area, and then some moisture kind of spilling in to the north central interior. There you can see the clouds with a band that's kind of breaking up as it shifts eastward, another band lined up along the north slope in the Arctic coast, and a little bit of a breakout over the Aleutians, but some shower activity just south-southwest of Adak. Otherwise, nice day over the Panhandle, dry conditions there with even the eastern North Gulf Coast seeing some sun breaks, as well as the Copper River Basin. On the chart today, just some earlier lingering snow showers that have more or less tapered off, although, let's see, Petersburg and Sitka both picked up about 0.3 of an inch water equivalent precipitation. That fell in the form of rain and snow at Sitka, and fell in the form of snow over at Petersburg, seeing anywhere from 2 to 4 inches of snow there. Otherwise, about 1 to 3 inches fell down toward Ketchikan, that all ending and tapering off during the afternoon hours. Some rain and snow showers along the North Gulf Coast, and then heavier wind and rain moving into Kodiak Island, especially on the rainfall. They picked up 3/4 of an inch during the day today. Wind's not all that strong, starting to pick up from the east-southeast, 20 to 30 miles an hour. And also rain, Alaska Peninsula, about 1/2 an inch falling at Cold Bay, where they had peak wind gusts of 54 miles per hour. And Cape Newnham at peak wind gusts 64 miles per hour. And Koliganek off to the east there, 61 miles an hour. So fair amount of wind with that system. Otherwise, 25 gusts 40 across the southwest interior on the wind. Snow blowing snow St. Lawrence Island, Seward Peninsula up into the northwest coast. And complex system of low pressure areas out over the Bering Sea. You'll keep it unsettled with showers and areas of rain or rain and snow across all the Alaska Peninsula, eastern Aleutians, and the Bering Sea for the next couple of days. For tonight, still some lingering rain and snow showers along the coast of the Panhandle, otherwise basically dry. And same thing for the North Gulf Coast, increasing moisture and rain along the outer coastline, mixture of precipitation as you move inland, chance of snow western Cook Inlet to the crest of the western Alaska Range, and then the lee side there in the Kuskokwim Valley, dry conditions. Then pick back up some snow and blowing snow for the western Arctic coast. Down to the Seward Peninsula, Bering Strait area. Conditions improving, though, for St. Lawrence Island with lightning wind conditions, slackening gradient as that front to the south, weakening enough. Just some light precipitation in store for that area. Rain over the southwest interior, freezing rain, snow, or just plain snow or rain up over the Yukon Delta, and still unsettled over the Aleutians and the Bering Sea. Moving on to Thursday's forecast. Rain and snow showers still, chance of along the central and north coast of the Panhandle, dry off to the east there with a better chance of seeing some sunshine. North of the Alaska Range, the Tanana Valley, 40-mile country up to the Yukon Flats could see some Partial clearing anytime during the day tomorrow. Downsloping winds off the Alaska Range, keeping it dry there. Then get back upslope conditions into the Brooks Range. Pick up a chance of snow there, especially off to the east with stronger winds. Snow and blowing snow western Arctic coast, and less of that down into the Noatak Valley. Maybe a dry afternoon for Kotzebue, and some light snow at times for the Seward Peninsula, mixed with freezing rain again for the lower Yukon River Valley out to the Delta and the Kuskokwim Delta as well. Any type of precipitation there. Mostly rain for the Bristol Bay area. Rain and snow showers behind the front for the Alaska Peninsula, eastern Aleutians, and then a little more widespread area precipitation in the form of rain or snow over the southern Bering Sea and the Aleutians associated with that 977 millibar low there just north of Adak Island. And moving on to the forecast for Friday. Low pressure, 995 millibar low, moving northeastward, tightens the gradient up along the and off the southeast coast. So gale warnings developing along the coast of the Panhandle during the day on Friday as that Arctic high kind of slips off over British Columbia and begins to weaken. And that'll allow some moisture to work inland throughout the day. And same thing for the North Gulf Coast, increasing winds. Actually, storm warnings for the eastern North Gulf Coast and the marine forecast currently for the Middleton Island zone for Friday afternoon, with some light snow possibly getting into the Copper River Basin. Whatever does will be quite light. And then also the upslope areas of the central western Alaska Range could see some light snow. Mixture of precipitation of that front swinging inland across the southwest interior into the southern Kuskokwim Valley. Another zone of light snow up over the north central interior, and increasing winds as well for the eastern Brooks Range, central eastern Arctic coast, north slope areas. Could see some blowing and drifting snow associated with those winds. Big area low pressure over the northern Bering Sea, rain and snow showers covering just about all of the Bering Sea, along with good area of IFR flying conditions eastern and southeast Bering. But look for rain and snow showers from the Alaska Peninsula westward all the way to Shemya and Attu. And for lows tonight, 15 to 25 below for the central and eastern Arctic coast. Otherwise, 10 below to 10 above for the northeast interior. Lower to mid-teens in the central interior. Milder out to the west. Nome staying above freezing. Forecast low 34. Lower to mid-30s over the southwest interior. 35 to 40 Bristol Bay. 30s for the Alaska Peninsula, as well as the Aleutians. Upper 30s for Kodiak Island. And around 10 for the Copper River Basin. 20s to lower 30s for your lows for the Panhandle. Upper 30s Kodiak Island. Highs for Thursday afternoon, 35 to 40, much of the southwest interior areas except Bristol Bay, 40 to 45, lower 40s for the Alaska Peninsula. On Alaska, I go for 43, 40 for Adak, 34 for St. Paul. Nome, forecast high tomorrow, 40 degrees above zero, 40 also for St. Michael. And Fairbanks might edge above the frost point there, 33 for your forecast high, but 14 for Fort Yukon and Arctic Village. And upper 30s to lower 40s for the Panhandle. Lows the following morning in the mostly upper 20s to mid 30s for the southeast coast, and a shade below zero for Northway and Tok. But generally, most everywhere south of the Brooks Range will be above zero, and 10 to 20 below for the central and eastern Arctic coast. But lows staying above freezing in Bristol Bay, lower to mid 30s for the Kuskokwim Delta, southern Kuskokwim Valley. Cooler to the north, teens and 20s. Lower 30s for the overnight low for Nome, quite mild, and lower to mid 30s for the Alaska Peninsula, followed by highs, upper 30s for the south coast of the Seward Peninsula, upper 30s to lower 40s southwest interior, south central Alaska, 40 to 45, and near 40 for the southeast coast, but near 20.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
We've got a flying weather, VFR Arctic coast and part of the north slope, marginal VFR Brooks Range with IFR at the Long Mountains, out to Cape Lisburne Point Hope down to Kivalina, a Red Dog, and then Kotzebue over to Selawik, Kobuk Valley, all marginal VFR, and along the and south of the Alaska Range there, upper Yukon Valley, Yukon Flats, some IFR, VFR Central Interior, marginal VFR, some IFR Southern Alaska, VFR for the Panhandle, including Yakutat, some areas of VFR over the eastern Copper River Basin. Solid band of IFR there from the Bering Strait into the southwest coast. and including the Pribilofs down to the eastern Aleutians, Alaska Peninsula, Kodiak Island, into Kamishak Bay and the southern Kenai Peninsula into Resurrection Bay and up into Prince William Sound. Some areas of VFR out over the western Aleutians. And moving on to the afternoon forecast, we've got pretty good VFR over interior Alaska, but south of the Alaska Range, it'll be mostly marginal with some scattered areas of VFR. IFR, southern Cook Inlet, Kamishak Bay, looks like slipping on into Kachemak Bay as well, across the southern Kenai Peninsula, probably all the way up into the Seward area, Resurrection Bay, and Prince William Sound to Portage, some of that possibly getting into, or Whittier, some of that getting into Portage, and Girdwood into northern Cook Inlet, Manusca Valley, marginal VFR. Still a lot of IFR, northern eastern Bering Sea, Fox Islands, Alaska Peninsula, marginal VFR for the central western Aleutians. Marginal VFR making a little headway, but not much into the south coast of the Panhandle, otherwise staying VFR throughout the day. And then for the Friday morning time frame, marginal VFR now creeping into the inside waters, but the eastern area staying VFR. IFR, Prince William Sound, southern Kenai Peninsula to Portage, Whittier, on up into the western Copper River Basin, Talkeetna Mountains to the Alaska Range. Areas of VFR and marginal VFR north of the Alaska Range, mostly VFR, North Slope Arctic Coast, mostly IFR, Bering Strait, western Seward Peninsula, Yukon, Kuskokwim Delta, Southwest Mountains, northern eastern Bering Sea, Alaska Peninsula, Kodiak Island, solid IFR, eastern Aleutians, Tashimi and Attu, marginal. And marginal VFR, southern Bering Sea for the afternoon on Friday, Aleutians as well into Bristol Bay, Alaska Peninsula. And then areas of marginal VFR with some scattered areas of IFR, southern Alaska, Kodiak Island, into the Panhandle, and mostly VFR north of the Alaska Range into the northern Kuskokwim Valley, all the way up to the Arctic coast and North Slope, pretty good VFR in those areas. Anaktuvik, marginal VFR for the day Thursday, same thing for Adigan. And Lake Clark and Merrill, marginal VFR, rainy, marginal. Windy, looking marginal as well. Isabel, marginal VFR in the forecast. Montesta will be a VFR day. Tanita, occasionally marginal, especially on the eastern entrance. Portage, IFR in the eastern entrance. Chilkoot and White, or Portage, lowest condition. It'd be IFR, but lowest conditions on the eastern entrance. And Chilkoot and White, good VFR. Freezing levels, warm air right up into the southwest interior. They're right over Nikolai and McGrath, 4,000 feet. And then the other 4,000 foot level there into the Barren Islands. Aleutian Range area, and icing between 5 to 16,000 feet, considerable moderate rime icing. That surge of moisture coming up into southern Cook Inlet, Fognak Island, Kenai Peninsula into Prince William Sound, and then a band of light to isolated moderate rime or mixed icing from the western Arctic coast through the Bering Strait, down across the northern Bering and into the southwest interior and Alaska Peninsula. And yet another batch out there over the central and western Aleutians. Looking at the jet stream, upper level ridging over the Panhandle extends into the northern interior. South to southeast winds on the southwest side of that ridge axis, 65 to 80 knots, eastern Bering Sea, 9,000 feet, south-southeast, 40 to 60 knots into southern Alaska, 35 to 45 knots over the eastern Bering along the southwest coast. 3,000 feet, pretty strong winds at this elevation, 60 to 65 knots right over Iliamna Lake, Kamishak Gap area, and also Prince William Sound and the eastern North Gulf Coast, but considerably lighter over the Copper River Basin, eastern interior, 45 knots southerlies over eastern Norton Sound, moderate chop, Cook Inlet to northeast Bristol Bay and the western Arctic coast.
Welcome back to another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. I'm Dave Snyder, and joining me today is Cindy Preller. She's the Tsunami Program Manager for Alaska Region's National Weather Service. And Cindy, we hear a lot about tsunamis in the news, probably a lot more than we used to, but let's remind everybody, what is a tsunami?
Thanks for having me, Dave.
Sure.
Tsunami is basically, it's really simple. It's just a disturbance in the water column. So the entire water column from the seafloor to the sea surface is disturbed by something major. Usually a major earthquake. But it can also be a volcanic eruption, even an asteroid. landslide is especially dangerous.
Okay, so if I'm sitting in my bathtub and I drop a bath toy, that could be a bathtub tsunami.
It is absolutely a bathtub tsunami.
Okay, very good. So Alaska is one of the states, or maybe the state, with the greatest amount of coastline. So tsunamis are a pretty major risk here in Alaska. Who is most at risk?
Yeah, Alaska is significant. We actually make most of the Pacific's tsunamis.
Wow, okay.
On the Aleutian Trench. And it's where the Pacific plate is subducting underneath the American plate. And we produce some very large, great quakes. And of course, the most at risk is the Aleutian Trench.
Okay.
But that extends into south central Alaska as well. They're at huge risk. And then southeast Alaska's risk is really mostly landslide focused.
Okay. Are there any places along the Alaskan coastline that don't have a tsunami risk, or at least a very, very low risk?
Absolutely. The Bering Sea's risk is very low, and the Arctic's risk is very low as well.
Okay, so when we're talking about tsunami dangers, those are places that need to be monitored, but probably not really.
No, I
No
mean,
big
I
deal.
won't say never.
Yeah, sure.
Because I know
You can't.
better.
Science knows better.
Right. So,
Very good.
near to never.
Okay. Well, let's just say you're on the coast, anywhere in Alaska. What are warning signs that tsunami dangers are threatening you right now?
This is super important because Alaska's greatest risk, especially out on the Aleutians and South Central, is a near-field tsunami. And then, of
Okay.
course, the landslides in Southeast, it's even more intense because we
So
can't.
shorter warning time.
No warning time.
Okay.
The earthquake is the warning.
Okay.
And that is the most important thing for anybody to remember. The water can arrive in less than 2 minutes.
2 minutes, wow.
Yeah, at the National Tsunami Warning Center in Palmer, we need to get the warning out in 5 minutes. So for those near-field tsunamis, it's the earthquake is the warning. So
Okay.
if you feel shaking,
Okay.
and of course the first thing you do is drop, cover, and hold,
Right.
and you need to start counting
Okay.
slowly to 20.
The right way. How do you do that?
Oh, I teach kids to do it with their favorite things. So
Okay.
1 chocolate, 2 chocolate, 3 chocolate, but you
Chocolate's
can
good.
count anything you like.
Okay.
And if you're thinking of something happy, that helps.
Okay.
Especially helps kids, but it'll help your
So you
psyche.
don't speed up because you're getting stressed out. I see.
Right. It actually lowers your heart rate.
Interesting.
You know, so
Okay.
if you think of something you love and practice that. So you're in an earthquake, you're under the table, you're next to the ocean,
Okay.
right?
Right.
This is important if you're next to the ocean.
Okay.
If you're not next to the ocean, don't worry about it. Just stay in place under cover.
And you're talking about a mile, a quarter mile? What's close?
A mile, even a couple miles.
Okay.
You know, our rule of thumb used to be a mile inland was safe, but the last few tsunamis have taught us otherwise.
Okay.
So, yeah, you know, in Japan we had an inundation up to 10 miles.
Right.
So,
Okay. And that was a big quake.
That was a big
So
quake.
you have a quake, you're counting slowly to 20.
to 20.
What's next?
And if you get to 20 and it's still shaking, you need to evacuate.
Okay.
And that is, that's scary.
Yeah.
Because you're
That's a big quake.
evacuating in a live event that's still shaking. You know, 1964 shook for 4.5 minutes. Indonesia shook for 12 minutes.
Wow. Right.
Japan, I think, shook for 6. I'm not sure of that, but it was long. Anyway, more
Right.
than 20 seconds.
And that's a sign of a very major earthquake, the worst.
Well, 20 seconds is a magnitude 7, so that's
Okay.
not the worst. But what a magnitude 7 can do is trigger a landslide.
Okay.
And those landslides might be a submarine landslide, so you won't see it, you won't hear it, you won't know it, and then the water's moving.
Okay.
So that's really, really, really dangerous. That's what happened in 64 first. Seward, Valdez, Whittier all had landslides first.
Okay. And when you're talking about the water is a warning sign too. What happens with the water that gives you a very easy visual sign that something's changing?
Not guaranteed. It might go out. It might go way out really fast enough to leave the fish behind. But that's not guaranteed. It might just be a fast flood instead.
Okay.
So either way, if it's acting like a super fast rising tide, faster than a tide should rise,
Right.
get out of there.
Okay.
And if it goes out really fast, get out of there.
Yeah.
You know, we lost a lot of lives because people will go check out the new tide pools or
Sure.
pick up fish or shells or, you know, so, and it should feel weird.
Right.
You know, it should be weird.
So pay attention to those natural warning signs and how you feel, because those are maybe the only clues you have.
Right, and you know, sound also. You can
Okay.
hear a tsunami. It'll sound like a roaring train, maybe.
Okay.
Or it might sound silent because the water's been pulled out.
Right.
And that's pretty weird. Imagine camping
Yeah.
at night
Yeah.
near the beach and all of a sudden you don't hear the ocean anymore.
That would be different.
That would be weird.
Huh,
Yeah.
okay.
And then you also might hear blowing bubbles, and that's actually from the pressure that's blowing the air out from the sand grains, rock grains.
Interesting.
So if you hear blowing bubbles, that's a little weird.
Okay.
Or clinking rocks, you know, like a rain stick. So those are the sound signs. So the visual is rushing in or rushing out, and roaring especially.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it takes a lot of work to get people and keep people aware of what the tsunami warning signs are and what their risks are around Alaska. And there's a website that can help them do that. Where can they go online to get more information for their school, their home, their church, their business?
Oh, there's several. The National Tsunami Warning Center has a website as well, and the easiest way to look that up is just NTWC.
NTWC.
The
Okay.
URL is not intuitive at all.
Okay.
There's also ready.alaska.gov. The state of Alaska has a lot of helpful stuff. Preparedness kits. They have everything you need to get ready.
Okay.
And then for teachers and others, there's a wonderful curriculum called Alaska Tsunami Education Program.
Alaska Tsunami Education Program. Okay.
And that's AKwx.
AKwx. Okay, very good. Those are really good tips to get more information and search that out and help your own community stay safe with the threat of tsunamis around Alaska. Next time we come back and talk to you some more about the Tsunami Ready program and get more in depth on how people can learn more about the risks and what to do here in Alaska. So thank you for joining us today, Cindy. And next time on Alaska Weather Facts, more on tsunamis around Alaska. We'll see you next time.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Looking at the sea ice analysis, extending from mid-Bristol Bay westward there to just north of St. Paul Island, and then angling off to the northwest over toward Russia. Not much change, no big change expected over the next week, and absolutely no chance that the ice edge will reach St. Paul Island. Moving on to coastal water forecasts, we've got small craft advisories for the coast of the Panhandle. Central and south coast will be southeast 25 knots, 8-foot seas, southeast 30 knots for the north coast. And for Lynn Canal, Glacier Bay, Stevens Passage, winds will be south at 15 knots of 3-foot seas. Clarence Strait, looking at southeast winds 15 knots, seas 3 feet. Small craft advisories for Clarence Strait on Friday with increasing winds from the southeast to 25 knots. South winds pick up to 20 knots for Stevens Passage, seas around 4 feet, and winds will stay at 15 knots for Lynn Canal from the south at 3 feet. Gale warnings along the coast for the central and south coast. Southeast winds 35 to 40 knots. North coast, east winds 40 knots. Seas running from 11 to 19 feet. Prince William Sound, east winds 30 knots, seas 7 feet. North Gulf Coast, gale warnings, east winds 30 to 40 knots. Gale warnings for the Barren Islands, southeast winds 35 knots, 15-foot seas. Kamishak Bay, gale warnings, east at 40. And Southern Cook Inlet, gale warnings, northeast winds 35 knots, seas at 9 feet. Brisk wind advisories north of the Forelands for a northeast wind at 25 knots. Gale warnings all at Cook Inlet on Friday, north of the Forelands, northern Cook Inlet, northeast at 35 knots, east 35 knots for southern Cook Inlet with 8-foot seas. Gale warnings Kamishak Bay, southeast at 40, and gale warnings for the western North Gulf Coast, Barren Islands, southeast winds at 35 knots, seas under 20 feet. Storm warnings in store for the St. Matthew or Middleton Island area, eastern North Gulf Coast, east at 50 knots. And good gales in Prince William Sound currently in the forecast for Friday. For east winds sustained 40 knots, seas up to 10 feet. Kodiak Island, small craft advisories, east-southeast winds 25 to 30 knots, 8 to 14-foot seas. Alaska Peninsula, southeast winds 20 knots. Small craft advisories, Bristol Bay for east winds at 25 knots with 4-foot seas. And for Friday, Kodiak Island, south winds 30 knots. Alaska Peninsula, southwest winds at 30 knots. Bristol Bay, southeast at 30 knots. On Alaska Island tomorrow, south to southeast winds 20 knots with 7 to 15-foot seas. Small craft advisories for Unmak Island, Atka, and Adak for south winds at 25 knots. And Amchitka Island, lighter winds there, southwest 15. Kiska to Shimia, winds will be out of the west at about 20 knots. For Friday, Shimia to Kiska, southwest at 20. Amchitka Island, west at 20. Small craft advisories For the Adak-Atka area, west winds 25 knots. Small craft advisories for the Fox Islands, southwest winds 25 to 30 knots. For the southwest coast, southeast winds 20 to 25 knots. Pribilof, southeast of 15. Same thing for St. Matthew Island. Brisk wind advisory, St. Lawrence Island, Norton Sound, winds right out of the east at 25 knots. And for Friday, brisk wind advisories continue for Norton Sound, Yukon Delta Coast, and St. Lawrence Island, east to northeast, 25 knots. Small craft advisories for the Kuskokwim Delta Coast, southeast at 38-foot seas. Small crafts also for the Pribilofs, west winds 25 knots, northeast at 20 for St. Matthew Island. Brisk wind advisory, Central Arctic Coast, east winds 25 knots, northeast 15 to 20 for the east side. West side gale warnings, east at 35, and from Cape Beaufort to Wales. Brisk wind advisories for east winds at 30 knots. For Friday, brisk wind advisories continue Wales to Cape Beaufort, a little lighter though at 25 knots from the east-northeast. Gale warnings for the remainder of the Arctic coast, all out of the east at 35 knots. For tonight, snow and blowing snow, western Arctic coast into the western Brooks Range along mountain areas. Seward Peninsula, improving though for St. Lawrence Island. Rain, snow, freezing rain, interior Alaska, western areas to just rain, Kuskokwim Delta to Bristol Bay in the Alaska Peninsula, rain and snow showers. Rain, moderate, possibly heavy at times, Kodiak Islands, the frontal boundary stays to the west. Also increasing moisture for the western North Gulf Coast. And for tomorrow, it stays wet and windy over the western part of the state and unsettled over the Bering Sea and the Aleutians, with rain for the North Gulf Coast, some of that slipping into the Copper River Basin in the form of light snow. A little bit better chance of wind and snow, gale force winds on the Panhandle coastline on Friday.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.